The Symbolism of Paths and Roads. The symbolism of paths and roads is confusingly shared with that of the theatre. It describes your route through the plan devised for creation, destruction, and evolution of the universe, the Great Work. Within the Great Work are tasks which, like all plans, are linked together in an interdependent network. And if we imagine this to be the plan, where each colour shows the person given that task, you can see it looks very like a map, with paths and roads shown as lines. Nobody sees the whole map, but people may join in temporary synchronicity to complete a task, travellers together, only to separate when the task is complete, perhaps moving on to completely new, apparently unrelated tasks. Dr. Edward Bach. We are not permitted to see the magnitude of our own divinity, or to realise the mightiness of our destiny. Our virtue lies in being oblivious, for the most part, to those great things, and yet having the faith and courage to master the difficulties. We can, however, by communion with our higher self, keep that harmony which enables us to overcome all worldly opposition and make our journey along the path to fulfill our destiny, undeterred by the influences which would lead us astray. Totally straightforward roads. The majority of people have no major role in the great work, no major tasks. Some will be the audience in the play, and some will have bit parts they don't even know they are playing. But all will have, for the most part, free will in what they do. As such, whether their road is smooth, straightforward and uncomplicated, or a nightmare of wrong turns and problems, is their responsibility alone. Master WOLMYONG. On the hard road of life and death that is near our land, you went, afraid, without words. We know not where we go, leaves blown, scattered, though fallen from the same tree by the first winds of autumn. Ah, I will polish the path until I meet you in the Pure Land. Restricted and confined paths. Major and key players are guided along different paths and roads their entire lives, and they have almost no free will. And these roads are not those followed by the majority. Paolo Cello, Warrior of the Light, Emmanuel. The moment that he begins to walk along it, the warrior of light recognizes the path. Each stone, each bend cries welcome to him. He identifies with the mountains and the streams. He sees something of his own soul in the plants and the animals and the birds of the field. Then, accepting the help of God and of God's signs, he allows his personal legend to guide him towards the tasks that life has reserved for him. On some nights he has nowhere to sleep, on others he suffers from insomnia. That's just how it is, thinks the warrior. I was the one who chose to walk this path. In these words lies all his power. He chose the path along which he is walking, and so has no complaints. Matthew 7. The narrow and wide gates. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Indistinct, rough and stony roads. Major players are driven by opportunities, not objectives. When they see an opportunity, they seize it. You will never see a genuine mystic devising life plans for himself or goals in life. They eliminate any personal desires and ego and wait for the right opportunities to come to them. And their ability to recognize an opportunity is based on whether they have been successful in the key mystic admonition, know thyself. They expect a rough road, as this may not be a path either well trodden or even trodden before. But a true mystic is driven by something far more important than gratification of their own desires. Lao Tzu. A way you can call way isn't the perennial way. Heaven goes on forever. Earth endures forever. There's a reason heaven and earth going on, enduring forever. Their life isn't their own, so their life goes on forever. Hence, in putting himself last, the sage puts himself first, and in giving himself up, he preserves himself. If you aren't free of yourself, how will you ever become yourself? Dangerous and terrifying paths. Dante, The Divine Comedy, Purgatorio, Cantos 3 and 4. We arrived at the foot of the mountain, and there we found the rock was so steep that though our legs were willing, it was in vain. And he to me, this mountain is such that the first part of the ascent is always hard, and the higher a man goes, the less hard it is. Therefore, when it becomes so agreeable that the ascent becomes as easy to you as movement to a boat that is going with the current, then you'll be near the end of the path. There you may hope to rest from your exertion. I can tell you no more, but that I know for certain. Boggy and difficult roads. A mystic also expects to get bogged down, occasionally needing to be helped out of the mess of mistakes he or she has got themselves in. This is not, as some might have you believe, some personal, meaningless learning experience. It is the inevitable consequence of your being an explorer of new paths. The Explorer, Rudyard Kipling. There's no sense in going further. It's the edge of cultivation, so they said, and I believed it. Broke my land and sowed my crop, built my barns and strung my fences in the little border station, tucked away below the foothills, where the trails run out and stop. Till a voice, as bad as conscience, rang interminable changes in one everlasting whisper, day and night repeated so. Something hidden, go and find it. Go and look behind the ranges. Something lost behind the ranges, lost waiting for you. Go. Then I knew the while I doubted, knew his hand was certain o'er me. Still, it might be self-delusion. Scores of better men had died. I could reach the township living, but he knows what terrors tore me. But I didn't. Then I went down the other side. lighting fires. I remember sitting by them. I remember seeing faces, hearing voices through the smoke. I remember they were fancy, for I threw a stone to try 'em. Something lost behind the ranges was the only word they spoke. Well, I know who'll take the credit. All the clever chaps that follow. Came a dozen men together, never knew my desert fears. Tracked me by the camps I'd quitted, used the water holes I'd hollowed. They'll go back and do the talking. They'll be called the pioneers. Have I named one single river? Have I claimed one single acre? Have I kept one single nugget, barring samples? No, not I. Because my price was paid me 10 times over by my maker. But you wouldn't understand it. You go up and occupy.